Chapter 31, Rationalism. So you were born yesterday. Today you are being told that doing what everyone else says or does may not be in your best interests. Sometimes it is a good idea to follow their advice. Sometimes it isn't. What tools do you have that can make your journey through life a little easier? To quote Ayn Rand, rationality is man's basic virtue, the source of all his other virtues. Man's basic vice, the source of all his evils, is the act of unfocusing his mind, the suspension of his consciousness, which is not blindness, but the refusal to see, not ignorance, but the refusal to know. Irrationality is the rejection of man's means of survival and, therefore, a commitment to a course of blind destruction. That which is anti-mind is anti-life. End quote. I was attending an academy that teaches people how to trade future contracts. They really wanted to get the idea through to their students that Wall Street methodically manipulates the markets through unethical means in order to reap a profit. The evidence they showed convinced me. Jim Cramer is the host of Mad Money on CNBC these days. Before that, he was a hedge fund manager at Goldman Sachs. So there's this video of Cramer out on the web. The video is an interview of Cramer admitting to some of the most damning things you could think of in terms of market manipulation. Just type in Cramer manipulation into a YouTube search and you'll easily find what I'm talking about. We watched the video together as a class. Here are a few quotes from the interview. You can't foment, which is to instigate or stir up. You can't create an impression that a stock is down, but you do it anyway because the SEC doesn't understand it. This is actually just blatantly illegal. I think it's really important to foment if I were one of these guys, someone who's running a hedge fund who is behind and needed extra cash. What's important when you're in that hedge fund mode is to not do anything remotely truthful. End quote. Cramer goes on talking about how you get bozo journalists to spread rumors that will push stock prices the way he wanted them to. It's all just amazing stuff, really. So our class instructor asks, how many views are on this video? I look and see a number in the tens of thousands. At this moment, it sits at around 74,000 views. Our instructor pulls up the Gangnam Style video. It's a music video starring a Korean pop entertainer. It is silly, funny, and entertaining. How many views does this one have? He asks. It had over 1 billion views. At this moment, it sits at around 2.39 billion views. What he said next stuck with me to this day. He said, every day people lose money in the market and they don't know why. There are guys like Cramer everywhere. But look at what people care about. They care about Gangnam Style. It's not like this information is hidden. It's there for everyone to see. As long as people don't look for the information that's out there, then they are like puppets moving to the marionette of Wall Street. The Cramer story was a mere fraction of what those classes unraveled for me. There is so much more going on. Those are just details, though. What you need to know is the big picture. We aren't really rational with money. Most of us react emotionally to it with fear and greed. Why inform yourself when it's easier to just react? Rationalism is about prioritizing the use of your mind. Your mind becomes more useful with the more knowledge you have. Note what Rand says about rationality being man's basic virtue. What does that mean? All of our values first come from our culture. The values could be anything. A village of headhunters could have a man in it that felt bad because he didn't have enough heads to display. We don't have that problem. I hope you don't anyway, because we don't share the headhunter's value for displaying heads. When we adopt our values from our culture without any reflection as to why we adopt them, we are not exercising our rationality. The values could very well be self-destructive for all we know. Environments change. There may have been a time where hunting for heads was really useful. In this day and age, it isn't useful at all. But culture doesn't change overnight. That takes time. In the meantime, you're going to have to make a decision. You can ignore the consequences of your value system, or you can evaluate the consequences of your value system. If you see that what you're doing actually reduces your quality of life, then I have some fantastic news for you. You can change it. Remember how cooperation always benefits the group as a whole? That's something that many of us can intuitively gather from our own experiences. However, the research indicates that being cooperative is mathematically proven to be awesome. With this knowledge in mind, we can create our own value system based off of rationality. Always cooperate with other friendly parties. Your culture may already be doing it. The difference now is that you know why you are doing it. There was a time where women's rights were being suppressed. As a class, women had to fight for their right to vote. The value system at the time was very much against it. However, there were enough women who rationally looked at the situation and found that there was simply no valid reason to keep them from having the right to vote. Those who fought for women's suffrage eventually achieved a change in our culture's values. Culture can clash with rationality because culture is in part operating at an unconscious level. Rationality allows us to develop virtues beyond the culture. These virtues are born from our understandings reached through our experiences. Consider the virtue of bravery. We all get scared at one point. If we keep giving in to fear all of the time, we are going to start making poor decisions. Part of growing up is developing our virtue of bravery. Scary times will come, but understanding that you can move through the fear to reach the best outcome that you have available is in your best interests. Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." Compare this to Rand's quote, "Man's basic vice, the source of all of his evils, is the act of unfocusing his mind, the suspension of his consciousness." Be good to yourself. Be good to others. Strive for rationality.